Good afternoon and welcome to Leadership Development Approach to Scale Your Business. With N-BAC, very excited to start this session. We're going to be talking about a leadership development approach that is going to be effective not only for the growth of you as a leader, but also something that you can apply to scale your business. And so in the chat, you can go ahead and share your name, profession, and where you're joining us from, and what about leadership you are passionate about. All right. Thank you again. And so with that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Najat Abdurrahman. I'm a keynote speaker, advisor, and also founder of N-BAC. It's a business advisory and consulting firm that provides companies with the help needed to scale their business, get more impact and results through leadership development. So I'll share some of our services in the next page, but for now, just to focus on me, I'm a certified leadership and emotional intelligence coach. I'm a certified DISC practitioner, have a master's degree and MBA, and also a BA in economics. Now, the thing is, even though I've worked in multiple industries in the past, my experience as a manager and also as a national corporate trainer in the company is really what drew me to focus on leadership development and start my own company. Because through time, I've noticed that you can train all of your employees, you can have the right systems, but really at the core of change and transformation is leadership development. So went ahead and started this, and I now share more in the next slide about N-BAC. So that's it about me, but about N-BAC and N-BAC Academy, we have services that include advisory and strategy consulting. Our main focus is leadership development. So we have leadership development programs that include training, but also coaching. And then we have capacity building and also DISC and emotional intelligence assessments. And this will also make sense at the end of this slide, but I don't want to spend too much time about N-BAC. Today, it's all about giving you an approach to leadership development that you can take and implement on your own and also in your company. So we're going to look at challenges leaders face, and then we're going to move to an approach to leadership development that I think is going to be very helpful for you as a leader, but also in the company. And then we'll talk about some recommendations. All right. So I'm going to start with a study that was released this year. DDI did release their State of Leadership 2023 report, and they interviewed about 13,695 leaders. Well, sorry, not interviewed, they surveyed 13,695 leaders, 1,827 HR professionals, and 1,556 organizations. And this is really to see what the leadership state is in the past, but also predicting what is the necessary and required environment for it moving forward. And so in this study, they have several predictions, several results that they show. But one thing that I wanted to just talk about in this today's session is the fact that CEO's top concern focused on talent. And this is, by the way, outranking economic and business challenges. So as you know, there's a lot of economic and business challenges that a lot of companies are facing in the world. But despite that, the top concern for them was talent. And it's not just DDI. McKinsey also did a study. And they said that there's going to be shortage of key talent. Of the people that McKinsey surveyed, 90% say they will have a meaningful skill gap in the coming years. 40% of Americans potentially need to switch occupational group by 2030. And this applies to this in the US. They did have a number, I think it was 36 for Europe, but also 40% of workers are planning to leave their job. And so with that, attrition is making it harder to retain skills within organizations. So all of this to say, investing in people can create a virtuous cycle that improves the ability to attract, advance, and retain talent. Now, we all know, like, if there's going to be shortage, it's very important for the organization to focus on talent development. There's really no time. That should be a key area of focus for organizations to invest in. Now at N-BAC, and I think you might agree, is that we do believe that leadership development has the greatest return. It's the core of change and transformation within an organization and at a society in general, right? Because leaders, well, if we think about organizations need the right people. Organizations need the right and enabling environment. And also they need the right systems, right? So for an organization to succeed, you need to have like the right people, you need to have the right and enabling environment for those people to thrive. And of course, you need the right systems. Now, if any of these things are missing, you're going to see there's going to be consequences, right? The company is not going to get results. Worst case scenario, there's going to be people leaving the company, quitting the job. You're going to see inefficiencies and all of that. But at the heart of that is leadership, because when you have the right leaders and when you invest in leaders, leaders create the right systems, they create an enabling environment, and they can hire the right people. And so a focus on leadership development is key, and it actually multiplies. Now, leadership is, of course, very rewarding, right? But also it's very challenging. And I want to pause here and ask you, think of the best leader or manager you've worked for, and how have they impacted you and the organization? Now, if you really think about it, and I'm going to give you a minute, is leaders do impact us greatly, right? You probably are going to reflect back and you will know that, wow, you know what, you're going to say, I've had great leader that really made me become a better person. I'm where I am because of them, right? So you see, and then you'll also see leaders who've actually affected the organization in a positive way. Now, if you think of those leaders, it wasn't easy. Like, leadership is hard, for sure. And the reason it's hard, and I'm going to mention some of those here, is that each level of leadership requires different skills, different competencies, and mindset. Individual contributor is going to focus on certain things to succeed. But when that individual contributor moves to middle manager, when they get promoted to become a manager, they have to completely focus on different things. They need different skills, different competencies, and different mindset. The same thing happens when you are moving from a middle manager to a department head, from being a department head to an executive. So each and every level of leadership actually requires different skills, different competencies, and different mindset. And I want to give you an example. So if you take the example of someone who just transitioned from being an individual contributor to a manager, you're going to notice they won't succeed until and unless they make the shift in mindset, what I call the leadership mindset. So if you're an individual contributor, you're probably thinking management versus leadership. When you become a manager, you have to recognize that both management and leadership are two great qualities that you should have. Management deals with controlling resources, inefficiencies, and all of that. It's about resources. And leadership is about people. It's about the inspiring. So you really need to start thinking about, okay, leadership and management, how do I become great at both? The same thing happens when you're thinking about an individual contributor. They're usually doing the thing themselves, right? So they're doing the thing themselves. But when you move to become a manager, they really have to shift from doing to enabling. So instead of doing it yourself, now you have a team that you're leading, so you have to shift to enabling them to do the right thing, to create an environment for them to be able to do. The focus for an individual contributor is on succeeding. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to succeed. But when you become a manager, you now have teams that you're responsible for. So you really got to shift from thinking about how do I succeed into thinking about how can I make my team successful. And the same thing happens from if you're a manager and you're just initially managing people, you're always going to be thinking about, okay, how do I make sure that I give answers to my team? Because you know what? You are now a manager because you succeeded at what you used to do. And so, what a lot of managers make the mistake of is they give fish, meaning they give a solution to problems to their team. Whereas in reality, if you really want to succeed in that role and move to the next role, you have to shift from away from giving fish to really allowing the team to learn how to fish, to really come up with their own solution. But then you're allowing them and enabling that environment. So this is just one example of the shift that's needed, but it doesn't really stop there, right? When someone moves, and again, this is just an example, we can have sessions about each of these transitions that are needed for leaders. But if you think about someone who is making a shift from a leader to an executive, now that is also very different. They should move away from thinking about the unit that they have. Now you're an executive, you really should think about purpose. What's the purpose of the organization, and how do I make sure that each and every employee that works at this company feels the purpose of their work, the purpose and the meaning of the company that are impacting the environment and the world, right? Also, if you're an executive, now you're not just thinking about your team, you're actually thinking about, is my department ready for the future? Because things are changing, right? Change is the only constant in life. So is my organization future ready? Is another thing that if you're a middle manager, you might not really concern yourself with, but when you become an executive, that's the thing that you really have to look at. And then the other thing is from success of the business unit. So like, for example, you might be in the finance department, right? And as the department head of the finance department, sometimes you might just be focusing on how do I make this department successful? Now that's great, but if you're becoming an executive, you really have to think from how do I make, you have to shift away from thinking about how do I make my unit successful to really thinking about how can my unit help the organization win. And then last but not least, understanding the dichotomy of leadership, right? So these are, all of these, I'm giving an example to just show that leadership is hard, right? It really requires you to think differently in each level, to think about different things depending on the level that you're at. Now, if you've been to our event before, you know that the best leadership style is non-existent, meaning the best leadership style to use really depends on the organization and the situation, right? And then the most effective action depends on the current situation and level of leadership. So we're really talking about each level of the organizational leadership ladder you're at, you're going to need a different style. Depending on the situation you're at, you're going to use a different leadership style. Depending on the level of leadership and the unit that you're at, you're going to take different actions. So really at the end of the day, it's like, wow, do we really have to be the superpower, right? And at the same time, leaders have to manage their team, get results, and deal with all of the whirlwind and still find time to learn and acquire skills to become a better leader. So that's hard, right? What can be done? Because this is really challenging. And so I want you to pause here and think about what's been top priority for you in your organization as a leader, and also what's been a challenge for you in your role and your organization. So take the time to jot down. And again, like I said, these challenges and problems are going to be different for different people because, of course, it depends on the organization you're a member of, the level of leadership you're at, and also the specific and unique situations that you'll be at. All right, now that you've jotted down what the top priorities are for you and your organization in terms of leadership, let's move to some of the things, best practices that I found, right? So the first is to shift away from thinking, what's the best skill or the best mindset I need to have to succeed as a leader, into really thinking about what's the best skill or mindset I need to succeed as a leader in my current role, in my current organization, and with my current team. Because know that what you need to succeed is going to be very different from what the next person who might have, by the way, who might have the same level of leadership might need. Why? Because no two individuals are the same, and no two teams are the same, and no two organizations are the same. So you got to understand that what you need, the skill that you need to succeed in your role, is going to be unique to you. Now, the second thing that I find to be very helpful for all leaders, in fact, for anyone, is this recognition that what got you here won't help you succeed here and will certainly not get you to the next level. So, what got you here won't help you succeed here and will certainly not get you to the next level. So, what do I mean by that? Remember, if you are now a manager, first-time manager or middle manager, remember what you did to succeed and to get promoted to management was great, but you have to know that that's not going to be helpful to you anymore. You got to learn, what is this thing that I need to do right now to be able to succeed. In fact, here's the thing. Sometimes what helped you get to where you are today might actually prevent you from succeeding where you are now, and might definitely prevent you from moving to the next stage. So at each level, depending on where you're at, just really look at, what got you here will not help you succeed here and will definitely not get you to the next level. All right. So there's this thing that you have to do, is just learn and unlearn. Learn and unlearn. So as much as we really promote learning, you also have to unlearn. So with that, learn not just in case, but just in time. What do I mean by that? If you just got promoted to become a division manager right now because you were a middle manager, you have to know, okay, what exactly do I need to do here as a division manager instead of just what I was like a middle manager. So learn just not just in case, but just in time. I'm sorry, I gotta delete that not here. All right, and then the second thing that is interesting, this is something actually that we found out here, even at N-BAC, in my experience, is that the way forward is really a holistic approach to leadership development. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of people say, okay, I need to learn a skill. I need to become better at decision making. Or they would say, I need to be better at delegating to my team. I need to be better at like time management, whatever it is, the skill that you were thinking. But here's what you'll find out. You might learn the skill, but like knowledge is not the same as the application. And so a skill or just a training itself is not going to be effective. But what you need is, first of all, you need that unique awareness about you, of where you are. And then you obviously need to learn that skill. So that training is helpful. But at the same time, just that awareness and the skill is not going to get you anywhere. You actually need to learn the mindset and the shifts that you need to make to be able to succeed at that next level. So we're really looking at awareness, getting the skill, and really the mindset needed. Now, How do we do that here at N-BAC? We focus on three things. Initially, we started with just training, and that was great. However, everybody that took the training would come back and say, okay, now I learned the skill, but somehow I'm not really applying it really well to my day-to-day job. Like, how can I learn? And then we said, you know what? That's great. That's why we added coaching to the training. So the entire approach that we use at N-BAC is, if you want to work with us to becoming a better leader, we start with assessments. The assessments are leadership assessments. There's the motivation assessment. There's the communication assessment, because these are all key in really identifying you, your personality, who you are as a person, and what the tendencies are. And then from those assessments, we move to coaching, because coaching is that conversation that you're going to have to see, okay, what's the challenge and the problem that we're like trying to solve? Once we understand that that's unique to you, then you complement that with a training. So you take the training, you're applying that, you're becoming more aware of yourself. And then through the coaching, you're actually implementing that, but addressing the unique challenges that only you face in terms of applying it. So assessments, assessment, coaching, and training. So these are the holistic approach of all of our leadership development programs are going to focus on these three things: assessments, coaching, and training. And so that's why we really believe that, you know, the way forward is individualized and also holistic approach, really unique attention to the person, but at the same time, a holistic approach of how do we ensure that this training is benefiting you as a person. So really staying relevant requires, number one, understanding the shifts required of you in your current role, in your current organization. By the way, different organizations also need different things depending on where they are, because there's cultural differences. Clients from here in the US are very different from our clients in Ethiopia and our clients from London, because each culture has different challenges and unique things. The second thing is keeping pace with speed and scale of business capability building needs, because there's always new needs that organizations need to have. And then the third is applying different methods of learning that would be unique to you. So I'm going to pause it here. And two things that I want you to talk about is, what are some things you will do for the rest of the year? So now that you know this, like, how are you going to start that self-exploration process of really charting out your path for leadership development? And then what innovative ways will you be trying out? So I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to send you to a breakout room. Welcome back, and I hope you're able to have at least few action items for you for the rest of the year, because we're really half of that year, and what you do now can really transform the organization for the coming few months. So I want to take us back to this slide, because this is really where the main action item for you is to go, is to really think about leadership development from like a holistic approach, but also to really understand that it's individualized. So if you've looked at great leaders, what they do is they don't use the same strategy for all of their direct reports, right? Because each person is unique. And so if you want to grow as a leader, take that also to yourself and say, it's not really the entire leadership development programs out there that I see, but what is really unique and relevant to me, one, as a person, because if you take the assessments, you're going to know what your strengths are, you're going to know what your weaknesses are, you're going to know what your tendency is, and then from there you can use that. And two is that once you are aware of that specific situation in your tendencies, then you're going to have to do a real assessment of, okay, where is my skill level for what I need, right? So what is my organization and my level of leadership really expecting from me? And do I have that skill, or do I have a gap in skill? And that's where the coaching comes. The coaching is there to really help you assess that process for you, really identify a goal for you, and then kind of like come up with a plan to say, you need these tools, but also you need these skills to be able to succeed in your current role and get to that next level. So this is for you as a leader. If you want to be a better leader, start with awareness. If you haven't done any assessment, I highly recommend that you take assessments for the personal assessments like your tendencies. We do have a DISC assessment. Then take emotional intelligence assessment, your leadership styles and tendencies assessment. Now, this assessment is really to give you an idea as to where you are. And then when you decide and have that vision of where you want to go, then that's where the coaching is going to help you, because it's not generic for everyone, right? Sometimes training is great because it's teaching you a skill, but you really going back and forth and discussing with a coach to really identify what is standing in the way, what is the best plan of action for me given my personal situation, my organizational level and culture, the people that I lead. And so with all of that, you can come up with a really good strategy for you and then get those skills that are needed. And at the end of the day, it's really to learn that, to know that you're learning just in time, not just in case. It's not a matter of just collecting knowledge or getting more and more skills, but really to say, just in time, like, what exactly do I need to learn right now for my skill at where I'm at? When you get that skill, you're going to succeed in that role and get to that next level. And when you do get to that next level, that would then be another question of saying, what is it just in time training that I need for this one? So that learning never really stops. And I want to pause here talking about you personally as a leader. And now let's talk about how you can get this to the organization that you're leading. And so if you have, if you're in the learning and development department and you're responsible for training other people, the first thing that I want to say is learn that not all people are the same. And so really start with assessing what level of leadership requires what level of skills when in your organization, right? So in your specific organization, so an IT company is run very differently from an accounting, is very different from like an arts company, because each company has a unique culture, each company has different needs. And we've if you have attended our previous workshop where we talked about each leadership style requires different environments. So just like that, your organization is going to need specific type of leadership culture. But within that, you can really chart out by starting and assessing what level of leadership in our organization needs what type of skills. So you have those generic skills that are required for the different levels. But then if you haven't started incorporating coaching, I highly recommend you do that. And then if you want to really multiply the effects of your efforts, is really to focus by starting with the leaders, because when leaders are able and are most effective, they will then be able to pass that information, create that system. But at the same time, just as I'm saying coaching is the right thing to do for all leaders, I would say the best thing to do is to focus on training your leaders to be a better coach. Now, that's in fact in the study that was done by the study that was conducted by DDI. That's what I found out. You know, a lot of companies don't really focus on coaching, but when they do, the effects and results multiply. So start by teaching your leaders and managers to become effective managers as coaches. Now, when they're able to do that, each manager and each leader is going to pass that information to those they lead, and that's going to create multiple results. And so with that, I guess, is understanding the shifts required for you in your role. But if you are a leadership, if you're a department that deals with the training of your employees, to really understand what are the shifts needed for each level and what kind of skills does each level need to succeed in our organization. And then keep pace with the speed and scale of the business capability building needs. What does our business need overall to not only thrive, but also be ready for the future? And then applying different methods of learning, because know that each and every employee learns in a different way, and really you can use technology to capitalize on that. So now it's just for a Q&A, but what I'll do is I have special offer to attendees, 1 hour of free consultation. So if you want to schedule a time, feel free to email at najat at nbac.com, nejat at n-bac.com. And we can discuss a 1 hour plan for you as a leader, but also if you're looking for your organization and some things that you can do in your capacity, we can absolutely discuss that as well. And I'm going to put it here. There's several ways to connect with us. If you have questions directly, you can send me an email. My email address is najat@nbac.com. You can go to our website, like our LinkedIn page, and also if you want to schedule a discovery call or any information, you can go to my Calendly, and that would allow you to see the times available and you can schedule something there. But with that, we're going to end here, and thank you for joining us.